Good evening. I'm excited to introduce our dinner plenary, Parents Speak, panel of parents of transgender and non-binary youth. The panel will be moderated by HRC's Vice President of Programs and Partnerships, Ellen Kahn, who uses she/her pronouns. Ellen has been a leader at HRC for many years and has helped to start and continues to support many initiatives at the organization, including Welcoming Schools, All Children, All Families, Project Thrive, the HBCU program, HIV and Health Equity, and the Parents for Transgender Equality National Council. Prior to joining HRC, she served for 12 years at Whitman Walker Health, leading lesbian services for 8 years and helping the organization expand its programming for LGBTQ people and families. Ellen is joined by several supportive and affirming parents of transgender and non-binary children, including Mahareen Beg, who uses she/her pronouns, Daniel Young, who uses he/him pronouns, and Hal Wynn, who also uses he/him pronouns. Additionally, Hannah Edwards, who uses she/her pronouns, is joining the panel discussion and will share a bit about her work as Executive Director of Transforming Families Minnesota, a peer-led support group for trans and non-binary youth and their parents and caregivers. Hannah is a former public school art teacher and a proud parent. Please help me welcome our panelists to the stage.
This Ellen sounds fascinating. I thank you very much. Yeah, I have to make a joke when people say nice things about me. It's just something I do. I really am honored to do the work I do. I think there might be 5 jobs like mine in the world. I mean, it's really a powerful thing to do this work and to do it in the company of such amazing colleagues and advocates. Before we have a conversation with the parents, first, if you can't see the panelists, I encourage you to take a minute or two and find a better seat. I can kill time. I can tell a couple jokes if you want to move around. But I really want you to have the full experience, and this pillar is not friendly to everybody. So in his introduction, one of the things Ray said was that I work with the Parents for Trans Equality Council, and that has given so much joy and sort of life to me in the last few years that I've worked at HRC, because it's kind of a newer initiative. And the impetus for the Parents for Trans Equality Council was around 2016, 2017, when we were seeing the first legislative attacks on trans people, primarily in the form of bathroom bills, the term bathroom bill, with the first one in North Carolina, and then sort of the domino effect, and the sort of emerging anti-trans rhetoric. We would catch glimpses of video clips of parents of trans kids testifying in front of their legislature or sharing on a local news show why these kinds of bills were harmful to their family and why they're concerned. And I think a lot of those parents in the early days of this kind of anti-trans ugliness didn't expect to be thrust into the spotlight, didn't wear an advocate hat, didn't feel any deep connection to the LGBTQ movement. But like any parent who loves their kid, they just stopped in their tracks and said, like, what are you doing? You can't do this. My kid has every right to go to school and use the bathroom and live life to their fullest. So we saw the way people responded to parents, the kind of impact and influence of their words, not to replace the voices of trans people themselves, not to replace other important advocates like pediatricians and researchers, but a very unique and very powerful perspective. I know my child. I've seen my child grow. I know what's helped. I know what hasn't helped. That's just powerful, and you can't argue with it. So I am delighted to have just the 4 parents here are the tip of the iceberg. First of all, I know there are other parents of trans and non-binary kids in the room, so just give a little shout and let us love you up. So, you know, the four folks here, they're four individuals. They have their unique identities, experience, journeys. There's not one cookie cutter path that these kids and their families go on. But we really just wanted to bring to life and to light some of the shared experiences, some of what might be more unique experiences, and, you know, really kind of pull on your hearts and your minds, thinking about how you can be the best possible allies to both the parent, to the young people you serve and teach and support, and their parents. So that's why we're having this conversation, and we're going to jump right in. I'm going to sit down, so you all probably won't see me again, because I'll be behind this. Hello. So let's get we'll share the mic. No, everybody has a mic. Okay, great. So as a way of introducing each person, I'm going to ask them a starting question. And so just, you know, share your name and pronouns when you answer the first question. And then we're just going to roll into a conversation. It's going to be a little bit like table talk, a little bit like The View, much more substantive, if you ask me. Okay. So we'll start. Danny, can we just start with you and go down? So the first question is, what do you recall about how and when your child first expressed their gender identity to you? And what I mean by that is their age, in what way did they tell you, words, actions, those sort of first moments when they conveyed something that landed about their gender identity, and what do you call about those initial reactions you had? So we're just going to baseline it with that question.
My name is Danny Young. Oh, sorry. My name is Danny Young. My pronouns are he, him. And I will say, as a parent of twins, life has been a little bit of a blur over these last 9 years, and I don't remember much with specificity. But I do remember February 11th, 2022. That was a Friday, and it was like any other Friday. And we put our kids to bed, and then a little while later, my son was crying in bed. And we went to talk to him. He's not one to volunteer big emotions and big thoughts. You have to kind of pry it out of him. But what we got to was that he was able to express to us that he felt like a boy on the inside. And so it was at bedtime on that Friday night that things changed for us. And most 7-year-olds, he was 7 at the time, in the middle of first grade, aren't super organized in their thinking. But this kid came out with a plan. So by the next morning, he was able to tell us that we could tell the grandparents on that weekend, the rest of the family, later the week, and the beginning of the second week, he wanted to go by his new name and pronouns at school. And so that was our marching orders. And we were supportive. My wife and I were aligned in that. We processed it differently. There were some big feelings that came up, but we processed it differently, but it created a welcoming environment for him to claim who he was and is. And that's kind of a little bit of that story, and we did follow his plan. And I will just note briefly that the day that he came out at school, it was the day after President's Day, it was February 22nd, 2022. And that day will never be forgotten either, because you notice that they're all twos. So at his school, it was Ties and Tutus Tuesday. So the little man came out on Ties and Tutus Tuesday by wearing his tie to school.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mehreen. I go by she, her pronouns. Honestly, I have to pinch myself because 8 years ago is when my son came out, and if you had told me then that I would be sitting here, there's no way. So if I can be an advocate like this, anybody can, because I came from a place with a conservative Islamic upbringing. My son came out when he was almost 12 through a birth announcement. Gave me a card that said B is for boy, and it sat back and watched my face intensely, and when I opened the card, I was completely clueless as to what it actually meant to be transgender. We were hoping for lesbian because that's all I knew at that time of what we thought he was going to be, a lesbian. We were like, okay with it. But when he when he said transgender, I was like, well, what's that? Like, what's going on? Like, where are we? What's happening? In his card, he said, hey, yo, mom. I'm paraphrasing. I just want to let you know that I feel like I'm really a guy. And I hope you're okay with this. And I know it might be tough because you always wanted a girl, but that's not who I am. And I hope that you can accept this, and I hope you can help me choose some names, and you can use the right pronouns, he, him. And I don't like my birth name because it's too feminine. And so yeah, just help me pick a name. And he sat back and watched me, and that moment, you know that the first words, whatever are going to be out of your mouth, are going to be remembered for the rest of eternity, right? And you know, no matter what, you love your kid. Bottom line, you love your kid. So the first thing I said was, I love you no matter what. We gave each other a hug and kiss and cried, and then I went and screamed into a pillow next to her because I didn't know what was happening. But from that, I knew one thing. I had to keep my son safe, healthy, and let him walk his path. And it was we walked separate paths, but together. It was my job to teach myself what it meant to be transgender. And it was his job to feel safe, secure, and know that his home was always going to be there for him, and that his family was going to be there. Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Hannah Edwards. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm just going to come out and say it. I am the mother of Hildy Edwards. You may have seen her up here on the panel this morning. She's amazing and so joyful and powerful and wonderful. So yay, Hildy. But really, that joy and that exuberance for life has always been there with Hildy. When she was, I would say, about 3, she started voicing things to us, to my husband Dave and I, like, Mommy, in my heart, I'm just a girl. Mom and Dad, really, I feel I'm a girl in my heart, though. And so we kind of looked at each other and said, well, what does this mean? You know, yeah, we'll support her. We'll go buy, you know, the books that she wants, or go get her the Ursula doll from the Disney store. She always loved Disney villains. You know, we would say things to her like, well, boys can like anything, and boys can have long hair, and look at Dad, he has his ears pierced. Boys can have their ears pierced. And at some point, when she was about 4, she said, yeah, but I'm a girl. I like girl things because I'm a girl. And we thought, oh, duh, of course. And so I think my first Google search about it was parent support trans ? And thankfully, in Minnesota, there was a group that had started a few years prior called Transforming Families. And so on my 30th birthday, don't do the math, I'm still really young, hip, and cool, we went to our first Transforming Families meeting and just said, my kid's been saying this, what does this mean? And we found all these other parents who are walking this same journey. You know, different stories, every trans kid is a little different. And they said, well, your kid might be trans. Here's some resources, here's some, you know, reading you could do. And from there, we kind of just followed Hildy's lead. She socially transitioned when she was 5 in school. That would be a whole nother 10-hour story, though, because it went pretty poorly on the school's part. But we've just been following her lead since then, you know, watching where she goes and supporting and learning and growing. And I'm just so glad to be here to talk with you all tonight.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Hao Wen, he, him. I will say before I begin that I am not the best on time, space, or anything like that. I don't have a control of that. But my wife is in the audience, and she knows exactly when things happen and how they happened. And it's not because we're both lawyers, but she is almost always right. She is. There's 2 lawyers in the house, and 1 wins all the time. But I say that because I think it was around 5 or so that Asher, 3, I'm getting number 3, there you go, see that? You know, we picked this daycare. We picked this daycare because we drew it on a map and was like, what is the middle between both of our works? And how can we get there in case, right? As most parents do, right? So we ended up at Concordia University College. They had a place called Hand in Hand. And that's where we put Asher. It's where we put Ronan. And it's a semi-religious place. We didn't pick it for that. Again, we picked it for ease and care. But there were markers coming up to it. So, Asher wouldn't be able to have a full night of sleep. Asher started wetting the bed and having night terrors, more so than Ronan did. A lot more so. To the point where we were really just concerned. But, as parents do, we get really busy. You have 2 kids. You're just rushing day to day to day. And so I was rushing from work, and I was trying to beat the 5:30 deadline, which I feel is the most unreasonable deadline for people who work. Because the moment you pass that 5:30, you owe them $20 cash. Right. So I'm rushing there, and I get there, and I go in, and I remember Brianna looked at me and said, "How?" I said, "What? What is it?" Asher said that they're a girl. And yeah, Paw Patrol, Pink, and all of this stuff. Ronan liked Pink and then didn't like Pink anymore. And Asher always wanted to be like bigger brother, so liked Pink and liked dresses and liked Frozen. We just thought it was stuff, right? They were like markers, but I didn't really understand that. But then when I remember Brianna saying to me, Asher said she's a girl, I remember thinking, this is the most terrifying moment, frankly, of my life. And I've gone through a lot of stuff. I'm a refugee, I'm an immigrant, I'm a child of war, lived in a refugee camp, didn't know English, came here, all of this stuff. There's been a lot of things that have happened to me that have made me scared. But this was a very, very scary, this would be one at the top. And I was terrified not because, no, my kid's not trans. I was terrified because I was wondering, oh my God, Brianna, what did you tell my child when my child said I'm a girl? That's why I was scared. And I didn't know organically why I would be scared. But you want to know, is my kid all right? And Brianna said, well, we called her a girl because she said she's a girl. And I thought, oh my God, thank God. Thank God. It was the biggest moment of relief, right? And so Asher peeks around the corner because these kids, they're just so damn smart. They know everything. They know, listening to, I get to be the last in line here, so what I've learned even just in the short 10 minutes is these kids lead parents. We don't lead them, they lead us, right? They got playbooks, they got birth announcements, they got, oh my God. So Asher's leaning around the corner, and she knows that there's a conversation. And I very quickly look at her and I say, there's my beautiful girl. And the smile on the face and the run and the hug, and it's just like, oh my gosh. For that very quick, small moment, everything was gonna be okay. And so that's how we found out. And Gretchen, when we got home, it was like we're on this adventure. And so that was our first moment. And I appreciate you guys letting me share that.
Wow, really beautiful, powerful. So I'm thinking about the sort of circles of things around you and your immediate family. Extended family or neighborhood and community. If you're part of a faith community, the school your child goes to. So I'm going to ask some questions about how folks around you reacted and what went well, what maybe didn't go so well. And we can start with school. A couple of you mentioned already some experiences touching school. So if you can speak to how your child's school and immediate community responded when your child's gender identity was first disclosed. We have a lot of educators here, so I always like to bring stories from the in-school experience into the space.
So one thing that I didn't say in my introduction is that when my son came out in first grade, we were in Florida. And that was a big wild card for us. How is that going to go? Things in 2022 were already taking a turn for the worse. There was legislation, there was DeSantis, all that was going on, and we were at a magnet school from a place that pulled people from all over, and so we didn't know how the school was going to react, and we didn't know how the other parents in the class were going to react. I'm glad you asked about this, because the story of our family was pretty boring. Everybody was supportive. Some people needed more adjusting than others, but the school was interesting because we just didn't know, and so we got. Mati had said that he wanted to go by his new name at school in the second week, and so at the end of the first week, we reached out to the teacher and said, hey, everything's fine, but we gotta talk. And we talked to the principal, and the principal had consulted with, thankfully they still had her, the district LGBTQ coordinator, and they had a plan, and the school was ready to go on Ties and Tutus Tuesday. They were ready to tell the kids, and so that was good. The parents, we decided that we would rather them hear from an adult rather than have their 6 or 7-year-old come home and tell them the story. So we decided to put a message in the parents' WhatsApp group for the first grade at their school. And then we waited. And in the first few hours after we posted the message, there were about half the class where the parents put out supportive messages that said that, that's great, we support you. Some people said to us privately, if this is going to happen to any family in the school, we're glad it's you guys, because you guys can support him. And they were kind. And then, as I say it, the night shift took over. The night shift was less kind. There was one parent who joined the chat to dump on our parenting. He said in his 21 years of parenting, this is the worst parenting decision that he has ever seen a parent make. That one day a 7-year-old wants to play with dinosaurs, and the next day they want to be a superhero, and so why would we buy into this? And I got that message over dinner, and I said, oh, I'm going to need to respond to this. So I reached out to one other parent in the class and said, this is going to be a fun conversation. And she said, don't respond. Let us handle it. And half a dozen other parents in the class took him on for us. And that was an incredible moment in Florida. So our microenvironment in Florida was actually pretty good. We had the support, we had the trust. People weren't perfect, it was an adjustment. He changed names and pronouns in the middle of first grade and they slipped up, his classmates slipped up. He wasn't teased or bullied. We're very grateful for that. And other parents were willing to go to bat for us. And that was a pretty impressive rollout for us. We were actually really pleased with how it went in Florida. We left because we could see it getting worse, and the school's hands being tied, and all it takes is one person to report us, and then things get complicated. We wouldn't have Department Children and Family Services involved, but it could get worse for us, and there could be all kinds of unpleasant things. So we decided to leave. But the school environment was actually pretty good up front, and that surprised us.
With our son, he's a very private person, and we respected that, and we have always respected that. In fact, I actually asked his permission if I could even be here today, and he's like, Mom, you've done this. You've already gotten my permission, so why are you asking? I said, because each time I do it, I just want to make sure that you're okay with this. When he came out, he was transitioning into high school, which is already like a blah experience for most teens, right? It's like very tough. It's exciting. It can be just the most scary situation for a child who's about to come out as his true self. And everybody who he grew up with, now he has a different name and he's going by different pronouns. So we as parents had to be very active and go to the school before school started and do a checklist and be very aggressive and ask questions. And we worked with a social worker who was amazing. And we're very lucky living in a Midwest town in the suburbs of Chicago. We asked questions like, well, of course, the bathroom. Where was our son going to go to the bathroom? They gave choices. Do you want to go to the nurse's bathroom? Do you want to go to a special bathroom in this particular hallway? Do you want to be able to use any bathroom of your choice? And we had to go through this with a fine-tooth comb, and we as parents didn't spare any like guesswork, I should say. How was his name going to show up on the roster? Was it going to show up as his birth name? Did we want the teachers to know that, that he had a different birth name versus his calling name? And we let our son answer. He's like, no, I don't want the teachers to know. No, I don't want my birth name there in any capacity. No, I don't want to be changing in the girls' locker room. And that was the one that was, for me, it was like, oh, you're going to be changing. That's right. You're going to be changing in the boys' locker room. And as a mom, I'm thinking safety, safety, safety. And I'm thinking, where's the closest coach sitting? Are they there to monitor if anything should happen? These are the type of questions like we asked about we fine-picked every single minute of his day, and then we just sat back. We asked about the training for the staff. How would they know what to do if there was a bullying issue? Did they allow my son to join any sports team of his choice? And they were the most supportive school, but we had to put that out there. Now, we're fortunate because there were other trans kids there. But we all said, we follow our kids' lead, and high school ended up being a great experience for my son, but it wasn't for a lot of other trans kids. And I don't know if it has to do with him wanting to keep his privacy. I'm not sure. But again, it's how you also respond to family members. When we came out to my parents and shared the news, I don't even want to go into that. That's a whole separate conversation. Lost in translation from one language, English, to Urdu. But we responded with, we're not making any apologies for this. And how you respond to family members in the school and his peers, parents, is a big deal. I was not apologetic for a second. And I wasn't like, well, this is nothing like that. I was like, this is our kid, and this is my son, and they didn't have that leeway it didn't leave anything open for them to say, oh yeah, I'm so sorry you're going through this, which is a lot of what the Southeast Asian community would do. Oh, I don't know how you're handling this. I'm so sorry. Like, why? To have a happy, healthy kid. Yeah.
Sorry. Oh my gosh. So if you're from Minnesota, yeah, let's clap. That was good. That was a great answer. If you're from Minnesota or possibly nearby, you might have read about my family already. So for those of you who know our story really well, I'm sorry, you're going to have to rehash and live through it with me when I talk about it. We had an awful experience for poor Hildy when she was in kindergarten. She started the school year, not yet transitioned, but wearing pink shoes, the boys' uniform, and had a sparkly backpack. And it was about a week and a half into school when she started experiencing bullying based on her presentation at that point. We went to her school, longest story ever, hopefully made a little bit shorter, and asked, can you read a book to help the children in her class understand who she is? The book we proposed was My Princess Boy. If you've read it, it's very easygoing. It's like, here's this person. Are you going to be nice to them? Please be nice to them. Very easygoing book. We were told by the principal of the school, yes, we're going to include this in our October anti-bullying project that we do with all of our students. I think that's the perfect time to talk about it. And then 2 days before the book was supposed to be read, we have a teacher break here in Minnesota called MEA, where all the teachers go to conferences, wink, wink, or take trips with their family, right? But the school called my husband and I and said, we have a problem. We have someone from the school board here who says we actually have to put this through the parent council because this is a charter school and they have to approve all of the curriculum. Well, my husband and I knew that wasn't true because at the beginning of the year we'd also given the teacher a book about allergies. And we said, please can you read this book to the class so they understand how severe Hildy's peanut allergy is and why she might say, no thanks, I don't want to sit by you at lunch. Guess which book didn't have any problem going through no parent curriculum? The allergy book, right? From there, it really spiraled. You know, we were at school board meetings, trying to protect our child, trying not to be public. The first newspaper article about us was a shock to us, and we actually had our lawyers send a cease and desist because they had physically described my child, my kindergartner, in this newspaper article. From that awful place, though, really, as a family, we grew as a unit. We were strong together. We have some supportive family that are just amazing rocks. They come everywhere with us. My parents are super involved. You know, Dave's older brother and my sister. We've got a rock solid group. There are family members who we said, we have all of this outside. We need to take a pause. If you can't support us, we need to protect our kid right now. And we tried our best to shelter her from what was happening at the moment while we fought for her and all the other kids at her school. Now you look at us and I call us like accidental advocates because we were never looking to get into advocacy, but we were both educators, right? And so now I lead Transforming Families. My husband Dave, we both do welcoming schools trainings, and he owns gender inclusive schools because we thought to ourselves, how can we make sure that no other child and family has to go through what our family went through when their child is transitioning? And I just think about the last 9 years and the changes we've seen. We know what's best practice for our trans students, right? We know what's best practice for our non-binary kiddos, our queer kids. And there are trainings that really help because there are stories after Hildy came out. You know, we pulled her and we put her in a St. Paul public school, and we met with their gender equity person, and we met with the principal, and we made a plan, and she was stealth. She got to be her kindergarten little girl self, you know, for 3 months, not telling anybody. And in first grade, she said, well, I want to let people know. And Dave and I were like, no, we can't let anybody know. We're so scared. But it went so well. And the difference was her teachers had, you know, some training. They had a lesson plan. They had a book they could read. And so we've seen like the both sides of it. And I think in the last 9 years, we've seen more and more places doing programs like welcoming schools. And it's really frustrating, I think, is just all I'm going to say, to see that being taken away from teachers, those tools, because that difference is huge, giving the kids the education or keeping that education from them. So.
For us, so our kids go to a predominantly Chinese immersion school right here in Minneapolis. And the first thing that we did is Gretchen and I went to look at their school policy because that's what nerdy lawyer people do. And I was getting ready for like this big fight. You know, I was getting ready for this policy to be just trash. But it wasn't. It was really good. It said the bathroom shall be used with whatever identity the child decides. I mean, you know, like, frankly, when we talk about Southeast Asians, right, we talk about, you know, there's just some strict cultural things. And this immersion school has teachers that come from Southeast Asia, and they're very strict. But this school already had gone through a few other families that had experiences like ours. And I don't know who they are, but I was just so grateful that they existed, that they pushed some things, and that the school responded. So that's not to say that things have been just smooth. They haven't, but the institution itself has not been, right? When we think about bathrooms and, you know, it's like we found out that there were kids, you know, it's like, hey, honey, when you go to the bathroom, you know, if you stand and pee, the kids are going to look at your shoes, so they'll know. So, you know, maybe sit and then, you know, pee that way if you want. Yeah, no, I totally get that. I want to do that. But, you know, when you got to pee, you got to pee. And if you got the right equipment, I'm standing. You know, so I get it. I get why Asher did what Asher did that day. But on that particular day, there were a couple very curious girls who saw Asher's shoes pointed a certain way and then heard a sound, right? And so, hey, you're not a real girl. You know, there's like 3 girls telling Asher she's not a real girl in the bathroom. And I can't imagine how lonely that must have felt for her. But then she comes and she tells us, and then we write emails, and then we have meetings, and I will say the school mostly always responds really well. One of the things that I am truly grateful for is Gretchen. She is a person that is completely dedicated to our child. She's a person that will send an email at 3 a.m. on purpose because it's 3 a.m. so someone can see the timestamp that it's 3 a.m. and this person's thinking about it. I'm just saying, there are reasons why these schools reflect a better path for other people. You and the work that your husband do are saving so many families some extra hurdles that they do not need to go through. So I'm just hearing the stories here, some of them a lot less turbulent than others. I'm grateful for that.
So the audience, we have parents in the audience, but we have a lot of folks who are educators and work with youth in other systems of care or are supporting youth as mentors and some role supporting youth and youth development. So those are folks who are in your lives because you have children. And I wonder if you can speak to, in your interaction with youth serving professionals, whether it's in healthcare and community-based services and schools, what have professionals done or how have they behaved and engaged in ways that you would hold up as great examples? And or what are some ways in which they fell short and made things more difficult or kind of let you or your child down in getting some needs met?
So like Hannah was talking about, when we moved up here, this was a new beginning for my son. And he decided, after initially saying he didn't want to move, that lasted about 30 seconds, and then we sold him on the advantages. He was excited because nobody knew his former name. Nobody knew his former pronouns. He could just introduce himself as him. And so to support that, if you're in the St. Paul public school system, close your ears. We didn't do the right forms. We just registered him as a boy. Florida wouldn't change his birth certificate, so we were supposed to fill out a form. We didn't, because he wanted to establish himself as a boy. And he's one of those kids who, he wouldn't articulate it in this way, but his gender identity is about the least interesting thing about him. He's smart, he's a good reader, he's on the student council, he was Confucius in the school play. That's who he is. And so for the first 9 months of the year, nobody in the school knew. That made us a little bit uneasy as time went by. Right before his spring conferences, I said, so we're going to go talk to your teacher. Do you want us to tell her? He said, yes. And I said, well, what about the principal? He said, well, that's up to you. So now there are 2 adults in the building who know. But we knew that we could talk to the teacher because when we went to the fall conferences, behind her, there was a big picture of RBG. And we said, that's a clue. Because otherwise, we're in a new school in a new city, and we know that at a neighboring school up until a few years ago, the principal wasn't super supportive. But we had a clue what kind of reception we were going to get. And that was really important to us because we weren't going to risk it for the unknown. So I see a lot of t-shirts here, and that messaging is really important for kids to see. It's the flag that you put in your office, it's the rainbow lanyard that you wear. Those kinds of things are signals to parents who are looking for signals. Is my kid going to be safe? And it turns out, he is. He's loved. We asked the teacher, can we tell the principal? Is that going to be all right? She said yes. We talked to him, and he said, we are still learning. We've been through this with some other families, and we've, made some mistakes, but we're trying to learn, and so we'll learn alongside you. Can't ask for better than that. And one other thing I'll say to go back to the Florida time, which is in part shaped by the home, but in part shaped by people who are serving in positions just like you, just with a lot less latitude to do it. His school was so supportive that his best friend, from before the transition, remained his best friend. Stuck by his side. Friends with this boy, and they were friends. So we left at the end of 2nd grade, and in 2nd grade they had a yearbook. and they were able to, sign the yearbook. We've now announced that we're leaving the school, we're leaving town. So he got his best friend to sign his yearbook. His best friend signed it. Thank you for being you.
I don't know if I'm going to answer this question completely, but what you made a comment that those little symbols that are around they speak volumes, right? The little lapel on my lanyard that says "You're safe with me," or has a little pride flag, that is huge. And that is something that's lacking in our schools. I mean, I'm teaching in the suburbs of Chicago. You think everybody is open to those symbols, and everybody's going to be very inclusive, and rainbows are going to be flying everywhere. But I put about 9 by 12 rainbow flag in my classroom window one day, and the you-know-what hit the fan. But that symbol helped so many people that needed to see it. But the school got phone calls. The principal was thankfully very supportive. Was holding back the phones and saying, no, there's no indoctrination going on. There's no, this is a teacher who's been teaching for 30 years. This is a teacher who absolutely loves all kids. No, she's not recruiting, But that symbol was so extremely powerful. And that's what Welcoming Schools does, right? Bringing those small symbols in that speak volumes. For my son, he wanted to stay a Muslim. So he wanted to continue to go to a mosque that was inclusive, and we do have some mosques in the United States that are accepting. And he went there. It was a very uneventful Friday, and there was no symbol there. It was just a very plain-looking mosque, and he was disappointed. He was like, "There's no rainbow-colored prayer mats. This is a very boring space." But I'm like, but this is for you to step up. You're the generation that's going to step and make it yours. You're the one who's going to claim this, and with the community, you're going to work on that. You can't complain unless you pitch in, right? So yeah, that's just my side. I don't know if I answered the question, but that did take. Oh,
I'm just going to kind of harken back to what Hildy said this morning, actually, because guess what? You educators and you youth workers make the world of difference. And the way you make that world of difference is by stepping in and stepping up for your trans, non-binary, queer students. Every single microaggression you hear, stop it in its tracks, address it. Use it as that teachable moment. Refer, if you have district policy, refer back to that policy. I sound like my husband now, but say here at our school, right? That's the Welcoming Schools line. Here at our school, actually, everybody deserves to feel safe and respected, and you're being disrespectful right now, right? So be brave, at least as brave as Hildy and these other amazing kids, to stop that bullying in its tracks. I'm going to say again, the easiest thing you can do is those little visual symbols. I was thinking of this, and you both said it, but it's so true. I was a teacher for 13 years. I taught art, so I saw all 500 students in the building. All 500 students. Yeah. Let's give a round of applause for every specialist in this room. Some overdue credit there, because specialists, I'm telling you, we've got such a tough job because we see everybody. But we also get the joy of seeing children year after year after year. And we build these relationships, and they grow with us, and we grow with them. I was open with my students. I'm lucky I live in Minnesota, and I can say, here's my family, here's who I am. I have a trans kid, right? And putting those little symbols in my room, and then being open to those conversations and ready to support my students when they came out to me, no matter what their family looked like, no matter if they had support at home or not, getting them hooked up with resources like the counselor, or talking with their classroom teachers if they gave me permission, and giving lesson plans from Welcoming Schools, like, hey teacher, this student is Hmong, Their parents aren't super supportive and don't really understand, but you have this unique position to support this kid at school, right? And so never underestimate the value that you carry supporting that trans student, no matter what their home life is like, no matter what the rest of the building is doing. Be brave in your support for your students, because it really matters.
So, Dad, Mom, how do I know who's safe? Like, how do I know, like, who's with me? Oh, honey, if they have those pins, that's a good way to know. Oh, really? If they have those flags, that's a good way to know. Oh, okay. If you're ever in danger or if you ever need help, those are the people that will help you. Driving down the road. Hey, there's a place that likes me. Hey, there's a place that likes me. Hey, they like me. Yes, honey. No, they like me too. They like me too. Oh my gosh. But you know, it's really beautiful, right? It's really great. Symbols mean everything. I mean, we worry about logos, we worry about flags, we worry about, because they mean everything. They mean so much without saying anything. The responsibility of public service is such a great responsibility. It is a responsibility that is oftentimes thankless. Teachers, specialists, everyone, right? You don't get paid enough, you have to deal with a lot of things. But it is an awesome responsibility because you get to take care of these humans that are in front of you. And so the place for indifference is probably not, there's no place for it. So the place for, I don't have a particular person that I think, oh, they did a shit job. But I do have particular images in my brain of teachers or professionals that say, well, in a couple years, this kid won't be here anymore. So I'll just do my thing and they'll do their thing and then they'll just move on. But that is indifference. That is not taking the responsibility. That is not making sure that the people in your room are safe and respected. And frankly, that is not teaching the others around them to be inclusive, respectful. One of my jobs is, so I'm the director of a large prosecution office in the Twin Cities here. I manage about 40 trial attorneys. We only handle felony level offenses from auto theft to sexual assaults to murder cases. I am the director of those people. I have tried those types of cases. It is a big job. It's not me saying, hey, it's a big job and really important. It is me saying that not a lot of people like me get to those types of jobs. And certainly not a lot of people like me who then put a giant flag on my office that says all are welcome in trans colors. I don't have to tell my prosecutors or any cop that comes and talks to me that if you know about me now, right? When you come to my office, you now know about me, right? So I don't have to spend 15, 20 minutes telling you that this is who I am, these are my values. And I will tell you that if that's a problem, it's going to be a problem. Like a real problem. If I hire a new attorney and this is not a criminal justice sort of thing, right? I know this is a panel about, other things, about our kids, but what I will say is that our system of policing, our system of prosecution has been historically designed to mass incarcerate black and brown people. I will say that it does it quite well. I will say that I joined this job to make it, to just make more meaningful impact on the machine that it is, right? But that being said, the type of profession, the type of people that it attracts don't always stop to look at those flags. They have different types of flags. I'm not throwing shade or disrespect on anyone. I'm just talking about the environment in which I work and in which I operate. So when I put that flag up, when I put on my signature block, he, him, his, when I show up and then we have to introduce ourselves with police chiefs around everything, I always talk about a refugee status. I always talk about the father of a trans kid, because before we do the work of what we're going to do, they need to know about the work that we've already done in my family, in my household, in my office. And so when I go to hire someone, I bring that up, because if you're going to become a prosecutor and wield this tremendous amount of power, which the state has, you should probably find a different place if my flag makes you uncomfortable. Because our office is probably not going to be the office that you want to be at. If you're a police officer sitting down and you think that we're going to have a different conversation that's going to offend the thing that I just showed you who I am and what I represent, then maybe we're not going to have a great time. Symbols, I just really think matter. Public service, I just think really matter. At the end of the day, LGBTQ and trans people just do not trust the law. I know it's a generality, I'm sure there are some, but there's a reason why there's like low reporting. There's a reason why, you know, hate crimes don't specifically in every state talk about trans, you know, crimes and things of that nature, right? Well, that's a domestic issue. Forever ago, we used to think, oh, you know, that's a private domestic issue between a man and woman. No, that's their thing. Then finally, we have a domestic assault statute. Then finally, we have a domestic abuse no contact order statute. We are millennia away from a trans-specific crime statute. But I'm just saying that positions like yours, and positions like mine, and positions like yours and your husband's, and everyone else, these things really matter because we are so lucky to be in positions of authority and power and influence in our everyday lives. And if we are practicing indifference, and if we do not show up the way we are and who we want to protect and how we are, then we fail the people who should be taught how to love, and we fail the people that we love.
Thank you so much. We could go on all night, but we actually can't. I would love to, but we can't. I should say it that way. I really find everything you've shared so moving, and I could see everybody just like wrapped in attention. I have one last question, and I'm going to challenge you to keep it to a very short, like 30-second answer. And it's not. I didn't give you this question in advance, but it feels important to me. So. Having a kid who's trans or non-binary changes your life in many ways. Sometimes the journey is tough, bumpy. There are things you do that you never thought you'd do, people you sit next to you never thought you'd sit next to. Is there something that comes to mind? Can you say something you feel grateful about or joyful about that you never expected would be part of your life, but because your kid is who they are, this is something that's brought you joy or given you some new perspective or made a connection you never thought you'd have. So again, there are probably many things, but if you could just share one thing, and we're ending like on joy and celebration, and that's how we'll wrap up.
I've met people I never would have met. I've had experiences I never would have had. When we decided we were moving, I joined some groups, and the way Ellen and I met was because of some of the online kind of commentary. I've kept it relatively confined because he's still not out to his friends at school, and I don't want to be totally out there, but I've met interesting people from different walks of life and heard different stories than my life would have allowed previously, and I'm really grateful. It's made me a better person. And so this journey is difficult. It's challenging, but it's also been awesome because I've become broader and better as a result of it.
Okay, 30 seconds. Okay. I have to say, being an educator, the best thing is that because I've had my son who's improved my life and made me a better human being, now that has helped me reach out to the dozens of kids that are coming through me. So the power of change came, yes, as a catalyst for my son, but now I'm able to give that back to our school community and through my students. So hopefully it'll be a ripple effect, and that's the best part of, is one of the best parts of where I am today.
You know this is too hard to do in 30 seconds. I'm sitting here thinking, what one thing? It's such a joy to be the mom of a trans kid. My trans kid is so powerful. She's so talented and creative. She's sassy and like a normal teenage girl, right? But I think what I'm most thankful for is Hildy has broadened my entire world, and I thought I was a liberal person. I was like, hey, I'm woke, I know what's up. I knew nothing. I still know nothing. But every day I'm learning from Hildy about being courageous and brave and joyful in the face of any adversity, right? And so I think that that's what I'm most thankful for, is that strength that she gives me.
So Dr. Gefford is Asher's doctor. And Asher had a couple nights ago had a hard time, and they said, I want to see Dr. Gefford. I want to talk to Dr. Gefford. Honey, we're going to do that, but it's going to be a few months. It's not an ER. I want to see Dr. Gefford. I want to see Gretchen saw Dr. Gefford today, and I think you guys did too. And so Gretchen sends this picture of Gretchen and Dr. Gefford. I show Asher. Asher's super happy, and that's the joy. And this is the message back to Gefford.
Hi, Dr. Gefford. Mama, make sure to give Dr. Gefford a hug for me.
And that is joy.
That's it.